Hi guys, today's video is what we ate for dinner this week. I like to think of my cooking as what you would call semi-homemade. If you remember Sandra Lee from the Food Network, it's something like that where it's half homemade and half store-bought things, just to make my life a little easier. Especially sometimes we're tired or we're lazy and we still want something fabulous to eat, and these recipes really hit the spot. So if you're interested in seeing what I made this week, just keep watching. Our first meal this week is chicken casserole, something to really hit the spot on a cool fall night. So what I do is I start by sauteing up a chicken breast. I think I had two actually chicken breasts, but you could use as much as you need. You could use leftover chicken. You could also poach chicken if you needed to, but I like to saute it because it gives it a little extra flavor. You need 2 cans of cream of chicken or cream of celery and mozzarella cheese and some pasta. Now that everything's cooked, I do undercook the pasta just a little because it will finish in the oven. I add the juices, the pasta, the juices from the chicken, the pasta, and the chicken, and I give it a good mix, and then I start to add the cream of chicken. I don't add all the cream of chicken at once. I just do a little bit at a time to see how much I actually need, and I do end up using almost the entire can. And then I add it to I do add a little mozzarella to the actual dish itself. Then I put it in a baking dish, add some mozzarella on top, and I bake it in the oven at 350 for about 20 minutes because everything is already thoroughly cooked. You're just really warming everything up and finishing cooking the pastas. I only choose mozzarella because it just has a mild taste and it's really delicious with any type of Italian or pasta dish. So that's what we use, but you could top it with cheddar, provolone, even like a Mexican blend if you really wanted to, anything you like, and it would be just as good. But we just chose mozzarella, and you could also add any type of veggie, peas, carrots, broccoli, anything you like. I've done that before. I've also added Ritz crackers with a little bit of butter and breadcrumbs on top. Literally, it's endless what you could do, but this is for like really quick, fast meals when your kids are starving and your husband, and you just need to get something quick and fast for them. I will write everything down below just so you have exact measurements and exact times I cooked everything so that you don't have to worry, and everything will be down below so it's easy to follow. This night I decided to roast a 6.5 pound chicken. I just seasoned the chicken with salt, pepper, a little bit of garlic and onion powder, and some McCormick chicken seasoning. I really thoroughly seasoned it well, but you could season your chicken any way you like. This is just how I do mine. The simpler the better. I think chicken is just delicious on its own, especially when you're roasting it with all their own juices. It's always so good. So I cut up a white onion and I'm just going to scatter it all around, and I put a little bit of onion inside the bird cavity. And here I am cutting up, I believe, 2 big carrots. I will put a little bit of the carrot inside the bird for flavor and the rest around to roast as a side dish. Like I said, here I am cutting the carrots up. I don't know why I was struggling so hard, probably because this carrot was super thick. I usually don't struggle that hard, but this carrot was huge. So I just cut it up into bite sizes, kind of on the smaller side so they cook a little quicker, because carrots can take a long time in the oven, but these were super tender. And I love when all the juice from the chicken and the onion sort of get on all the other veggies, and it gives it a nice, delicious flavor. And here I am, I have 5 russet potatoes, but you could do red potato, any type of potato you like. And I'm just cutting them into bite-sized pieces, and I'm going to also put them around the dish so everything cooks and everything tastes each other's flavors on. And this was such a delicious meal. It was really chilly out this day, and this just hit the spot. It was so good, and everything's just cooked real quick in the oven. Well, not real quick, but everything gets cooked in the oven so you don't have to worry about the stove top, and it was just a perfect meal. I ended up cooking this at 400 for almost 2 hours. I believe it was exactly 2 hours. It does take quite a while, and when you see the little thing pop up, usually that means it's done, but I would check the internal temperature with a thermometer just to be safe. So it ended up being at 400 degrees for about 2 hours, and it came out absolutely perfect and juicy. Here I was just adding a little more seasoning to the potatoes and carrots. I think it was onion, garlic powder, and the McCormick chicken seasoning, but you honestly don't need anything because everything is going to be delicious once the chicken cooks down on it. I do add about 1/4 cup of water to the bottom of my pan just so nothing sticks and it creates sort of like a gravy. And then whatever the drippings are from the chicken, I use to make a homemade gravy the next day. I can also do a video on how I heat up my leftover chicken because I know chicken can get dry in the microwave. I never put it in the microwave, but I also can do a video showing you that. Here I am peeling some potatoes because I'm going to make some homemade applesauce, and this applesauce is to die for. It is so good and I'm so excited to show you. So I end up peeling about 7 apples and cutting them up into bite-sized pieces. You definitely want to core these apples because that won't get soft, but if there's a little skin left on the apples, that will definitely cook down and you don't have to worry about being super precise with the skin. But I cut them small because they are going to cook for about a half an hour in the pot. You could definitely do it a little bigger if you wanted to, but it might take a little longer, but I cut them pretty small so it cooks a little faster. And when I tell you this applesauce is so delicious and you can eat it warm, it's delicious. Even it cold is delicious, but it is something special when it's nice and warm. Now that all the apples are in the pot, I'm going to season it with some ground cinnamon. You can use as much or as little as you like. I really love cinnamon in our applesauce. I probably may have even added a little extra once it started cooking, and very little bit of sugar, maybe 2 tablespoons. You could omit the sugar completely because these are so sweet. I've always thought about toying with maybe putting strawberries in here one day and mashing it all up, or even mango, and just seeing if I'd like it. And here I am adding about 1/4 cup of cold water or warm water, whichever you want. You don't have to because they do produce a lot of water, but don't worry, I just add a little bit so nothing sticks to the bottom. And here they are. This is after about 20 minutes on like medium low, and you just cook them till they're almost mush. So you can see all the liquid, but once you mash them, all that liquid will sort of absorb. I like ours a little chunky, so when I do mash it, I do leave some bits. Here I am mashing it, but you could blend this and make it really smooth if you wanted, but we sort of love our applesauce chunky, so I just take a potato masher and get to mashing. And I think I did add a little more cinnamon. It doesn't need any more sugar. This is just the most perfect applesauce, and I think it's a crowd pleaser and anyone will love it. I had such a craving for sausage, pepper, and onion, so that's what we decided to have this day, and it was so delicious. You could cook this many ways, but this way I am going to put it in a pot and I am going to poach the sausage for about an hour just to get it cooked, or at least get it started, and then I will continue to cook it in the sauce. Once the onion and peppers are in there, it really takes on all kinds of flavors. Here I am, I just put some water in the pan and I'm going to cook this for about an hour to an hour and a half till they start to get a little brown. I'm going to cut up a pepper. You could use any type of peppers you want. I just think bell peppers go really nice. That's usually what most people use, but you could use any color you want. And I just happen to have a green one on hand. So I'm just going to clean them and I'm going to slice them up, and I'm going to slice a white onion up, and I'm just going to cook it in sauce for about another 2 hours. You could do this in a slow cooker if you wanted. You could do this in the oven, any way you like. This is just some way my grandparents had done it for years, and this is how I did it. And it has such good flavor, and the sausage is nice and tender. You could do this over pasta, which is what we did, or you could actually eat this on rolls, any way you would like, or you could just eat it as is. Here I am cutting up the onion. I like our veggies really big, and I'm just gonna add any sauce you would like. We happen to have ragu this time, but anything, you could use homemade sauce, and this is just such a wonderful fall meal. I add the veggies for the last like hour and a half because I don't like them to be too mushy and soft. I like a little bit of a crunch left. That's why I add this more towards the end of the dish being cooked. And I'm just going to add the sauce, and I cook this for another hour and a half. If it was a slow cooker, you could just open the lid and pop it all in. And I used the tomato, garlic, and onion flavor, and this sauce is really good. A little too sweet for me, but it was still pretty good. So I'm just adding a little water to the jar to get some more liquid in there, and I'm going to add a little more sauce, stir it up, and give it a good stir, and cook it for another hour and a half. I know bread is not the best for you, but oh, I absolutely love Italian bread. It is my favorite thing in the world. I could eat it on its own. I could eat it with just butter. It is so good. And here's what it looks like after it's been cooking for about 3 hours. So it's completely cooked and ready to go. It was so delicious. But like I was saying, oh, I love Italian bread more than anything. It just goes with any Italian dish. It is so delicious. I also love French bread, but there's something special about a great soft loaf of Italian bread. So here I am. I'm going to show you my broccoli and potato soup. It's so easy, and it takes no time, and it's definitely just semi homemade like I said. Here I am cutting up an onion really small because I'm going to saute that so it gives it nice good flavor in the soup. We like our broccoli soup to be kind of thick, so what I do is I do about a tablespoon of butter and about 1/4 of a cup of flour, and I cook the flour taste out. So for about 2 minutes I just cook it down, and then I'll add the onions to it, and I'll cook it till the onions are kind of translucent, so maybe another 3 minutes. And this will make sure your soup is kind of thick but not too thick, because there's not too much flour. But I just cook the flour flavor out and get the onions nice and soft. Here I am starting to add the milk. I probably should have measured it out. I'm going to say it's probably 3.5 cups to 4 cups. You're just going to sort of have to eyeball and see how much liquid you want. But I start out with about 2 cups of milk. That way I can sort of start thickening it up slowly so I don't add too much, because you can always add more, you just can't take away. So I just start with a little bit, and I let this cook down till it starts thickening up and warming up. And here, this is where the semi-homemade part comes in. I add 1 can of Campbell's cream of broccoli and 1 can of Campbell's potato soup. But you could add both of the broccolis, you could omit the potato, you could just do 2 cans of potato. And this is what gives it just such a good flavor and sort of jazzes up those cans of soup. I noticed I needed a little more milk, so I just did a can of milk. I added it sure to get the stuff off the bottom of the can and just slowly adding it to the thickness that we want. And as it cooks, it will thicken even more because of the flour we added. So this is what I do for this. And I cooked a bag of frozen broccoli in the microwave, and I'm just going to cut it up into a little more small pieces, but you could leave these whole. You could really chop them up even tinier, but you could use any type. You could use broccoli florets, whatever you like. You could do fresh broccoli and just steam it, but this is what I had on hand, and this is so inexpensive at Walmart. I think it's 88 cents a bag. So what I'm doing is just cutting it up really small, and I just season the broccoli with a little bit of salt, pepper, and garlic powder, and then I add this to the soup and let the soup simmer for about 20 minutes just so everything sort of can take on its flavors and be really good. So here's the soup. It's starting to get thicker, and once that broccoli gets in, it will get even thicker. So I'm just going to add the broccoli, give it a good stir, and that's when I'm going to add some cheddar cheese. You could add any cheese you want, but I just feel like cheddar cheese is the best for broccoli soup. It just really goes with this, and this soup's so simple and easy to make. Here I am tasting to see if it needed any salt. Sorry about the double dip there. It's just for my family, and they don't mind. I usually don't do that, but yes, I do that. I double dip all the time, but it's only cooking for my family. If I was cooking for a crowd, I wouldn't. But anyway, here I am adding some cheddar cheese. You can add as much as you want. I think I added about 2 cups, but I will put the full recipe down below. As I cook, I just sort of cooked whatever, is in my heart. I don't usually use recipes, maybe the first few times, and then I just make everything my own. And I felt like I needed a little more milk, so that's what I was adding. But like I was saying, yeah, I just cook to whatever makes me happy. I taste as I go, and if it tastes good, then we keep, that's what we do. I don't usually write recipes down. It's just all memory and things that we've made so many times over the years. But anyway, I just added some salt and pepper, not too much, and that was perfect. Now on this day, I was making chicken stew. It's a recipe that was loosely based off something my husband's grandmother made. She was Pennsylvania Dutch, and she made something called, it was like a pot pie without the crust, and here I am doing cream of chicken and potatoes, carrots, and chicken. But like I was saying, it's loosely based off of her recipe. I just made it my way and much easier and semi-homemade. I like to get the maximum amount of flavor from chicken, so pan frying it. You don't have to completely cook it through because it's going to simmer throughout the day. And here's some chicken broth. But I just feel like this gives chicken so much more flavor when you give it like a little bit of a crust. So I just start by pan frying it in probably a little bit of butter, maybe half a tablespoon, and just getting it all nice and coated on the outside, but you don't have to thoroughly cook this. I'm just going to saute the carrots just a little bit, but you could use any type of carrot. I just leave them whole. That way, because it cooks so long, they don't get too mushy. But like I said, you could use any type of carrot. You could cut up your own carrots. I just threw in some baby carrots that I was able to get on sale. I was able to get these for $1 a bag, so I just wanted to use them up, so I added them in. And here I am adding about half a can of chicken broth. And it will start to simmer a little bit, and then I'm going to add my 2 cans of cream of chicken. Here, this is what's going to make like just such a delicious stew. That's what I call it. I'm not really sure exactly what this is. I just made it one day and we just love it. It's one of our winter staples. I'm going to add 2 cans of cream of chicken and half a can of chicken broth for right now, but I save the rest of the chicken broth because you're definitely going to need it as this thickens up. I don't add the potatoes right away. I add them after probably closer to an hour and a half, when it needs like about an hour and a half still to cook. That way my potatoes don't get too mushy, because potatoes don't take that much long to cook. The carrots take a lot longer, so I add them towards the end. Here I am peeling about maybe 4 or 5 Russer potatoes. However many you want for your family. We like a lot of potatoes in ours, and so I usually put in quite a bit. So I'm just going to peel them up, cut them up, and then I'm going to add them to our stew to start cooking down. I cut them in about bite-sized pieces, but you could leave them as big or as little as you would like. After I rinse them and let them soak for a little bit, I'm going to cut them, in about bite-sized pieces. not too big, not too small, and I'm going to cook these for about an hour and a half to let all the flavors still sort of marry and be delicious together. This is where I add the potatoes, give it a good stir, and I believe I'm going to add a little more chicken broth just so there's a little more broth. It doesn't take away from the flavor. If anything, it adds more. You could also salt this at this point if you needed to, because the chicken is cooked, so you could taste the broth at this point because it's been cooking for quite a while. So I'm just adding the potatoes. I'm going to add a little more chicken broth and let it simmer for now, probably another hour, just till the potatoes are nice and soft. There I am tasting it, and it was perfect. Here I am, I'm going to make something, it's like a dumpling. It's my great-grandmother's recipe. It's 2 eggs to a cup of flour to a splash of milk, and you just add a little bit of milk, and I add a little bit of chicken broth because it was still a little too thick. You could double this batch, triple this batch, whatever you need, and these just make the most perfect dumplings. They're so weird. I think they're almost like a spätzle. If you've ever had spätzles, we make them a lot in our family too. We make our spätzles with pork chops. It's just a great recipe, and maybe I'll make them one day for you. But yeah, I just make, it's sort of like a dumpling. I'm not exactly sure, but that's the consistency. You want to be able to drop it, and it shouldn't be too thick or too thin. And you just put a pot of water to boil, and you drop them in, and I cook them till they float to the top, and then I let them cook for maybe another 30 seconds. But then you're going to put them in a stew, and they're going to keep cooking. They will blow up, so don't get too worried if the whole pot sort of blows up with the dumplings in it. And this, with the flour in it, will definitely thicken your stew up, so it's less of a soup and more of a stew. So after they float to the top, I cook them for 30 seconds, and then I will put them in the stew. And I know that's a lot of starches in it, but I'm not saying this is healthy. It's just delicious. If you are freezing cold and need something wonderful to eat on a cold winter night, this will definitely do the spot for you. So I'm just adding the rest of the batch in. I didn't make too many because there was quite a bit of potatoes, but my family loves these dumplings. I also like to put these dumplings in a vegetable soup I make, and it's so good. And I also, like I said, I'll make spätzles, which are a little bit different, but they're cooked the same way, and we'll use them with a little bit of butter for a side for pork chops. So like I said, once they raise to the top, give them a good 30 seconds, and then you can add them to your pot. Like I said, these will blow up, so don't get nervous, but once you sort of push them back down, they will sort of deflate and it will be perfect. But this is sort of like, if you left out the potatoes and the carrots, it reminds me of chicken and dumplings a little, and this will definitely thicken up once you put your dumplings in it. Okay guys, sadly this is the end of our What's for Dinner. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them down below. If you tried any of these meals, please let me know down in the comments. I hope you comment, like, and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching. Bye guys.